I step into the courtroom and the air changes. It always does. The smell of stale fear and cheap cologne hangs heavy. Another day, another parade of human folly. I settle into my chair, the leather groaning under the weight of the law, and I look at the docket. The name on the defendant's line almost makes me laugh. Almost. Miller, Tiffany. I know the name. I know the father. And I certainly know the incident that brought her here, because I was the other half of it. My courtroom, my rules, and today the defendant is a young woman who had the spectacular misfortune of trying to pull rank on the one person in this city you don't do that with. I look over my glasses at her. There she sits, a perfect picture of suburban entitlement. Designer handbag placed just so on the table, hair professionally blown out, an expression of bored indignation plastered on her face as if this whole proceeding is an annoying interruption to her brunch schedule. She thinks she's a princess in a fairy tale. She has no idea she just walked into the dragon's lair. Her lawyer, some slick, overpriced suit who probably charges by the syllable, whispers something to her. She just shrugs, a petulant little gesture that says more than 1,000 words. It says, "Don't worry, Daddy will fix this." Oh, honey, Daddy's not here to fix this. Daddy's on the witness list. I clear my throat. The sound cracks through the room like a gavel. Let's get this show on the road. The matter before the court involves an incident on October 12th. Defendant, Miss Tiffany Miller. Is that you? She stands up a little too slowly for my taste. Yes, Your Honor. The words are correct, but the tone is all wrong. It's the kind of voice that's used to ordering baristas around, not addressing a judge. Good, you know how to speak. Let's see if you know how to tell the truth, I say, my eyes locking onto hers. Now, I was there, so this should be simple. But for the record, I want to hear your version of events. Tell me what happened in the parking lot of the Grandview Diner 2 weeks ago. And don't editorialize, just the facts, if you know what those are. Her lawyer starts to stand. Your Honor, my client... I cut him off with a wave of my hand. You sit down. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the person who tried to have me arrested for taking a parking spot she believed was ordained for her by God himself. She can speak for herself. He sits. Smart man. Tiffany takes a breath, puffing up her chest. Here it comes. The performance. I was driving into the lot and I saw a spot opening up. I had my signal on. I was waiting. And then she just zipped in and took it. Out of nowhere. It was incredibly aggressive. She? I ask, leaning forward. There's a she sitting in this chair wearing a robe. Are you referring to me? Yes, she says, a flicker of defiance in her eyes. You stole my spot. When I got out to say something, you were immediately hostile and rude. My face is a stone mask, but inside, I'm marveling at the sheer, unadulterated nonsense. Hostile? I was getting my pocketbook off the passenger seat. Hostile how? Did I raise my voice? Did I make a threatening gesture? Did I use foul language? Tell me, Miss Miller, what was the nature of this terrifying hostility? You had a look on your face? She sputters. And you said, the spot is for the person who gets to it first, not the one who wishes for it the hardest. It was condescending. I let a small, dry smile touch my lips. So I was condescending, and for that, you felt it was appropriate to call the police? You were creating a public disturbance, she declares, her voice rising. You were upsetting me. I felt threatened. Threatened? By a 5'2" woman in her 70s holding a handbag? You're 24 years old. You look healthy. What exactly did you think was going to happen? Was I going to hit you with my coupons, the gallery titters? I silenced them with a glare. Don't be ridiculous, she snaps, forgetting where she is. My voice drops, losing all its warmth. No, you don't be ridiculous in my courtroom. You felt threatened, so you called for help. Is that what happened? Yes. I called the police to handle the situation. She says, chin held high, as if she'd done a civic duty. That's not what I heard. I counter, my gaze unblinking. I didn't hear you call 911. I heard you make a different call. And I heard you say something very specific to the 2 young officers who arrived. Do you remember what you said to them, Miss Miller? Do you remember the exact words you used when you pointed at me? A shadow of doubt crosses her face. She's starting to realize that this isn't going the way she pictured. The confidence wavers. I don't recall my exact words. Liar, I say. The word flat and hard. You're lying in a court of law. That's perjury. We can add that to the list. Let me refresh your memory. Officer Petrie, please approach the stand. A young, ramrod straight officer walks forward and is sworn in. He looks like he'd rather be facing a bank robber than my questions. I don't blame him. Officer, I begin, my voice calm but firm. You responded to a call at the Grandview Diner on October 12th, correct? Yes, Your Honor. And when you arrived, you saw the defendant, Miss Miller, and myself. Yes, Your Honor. Tell me what Miss Miller said to you. Her exact words, if you can recall. He swallows hard, his eyes darting nervously towards Tiffany, then back to me. She was very agitated, ma'am. She said you had stolen her parking spot and were being aggressive. And? I press. What else did she say? What did she demand that you do? Officer Petrie takes a deep breath. She said, that's her. I want her arrested. And then she said, my father is Chief of Police, Robert Miller. You'd better do what I say. The courtroom is dead silent. I let the words hang in the air, a toxic cloud of arrogance and corruption. I turn my eyes back to the defendant. Her face has gone from tanned and confident to a pale, blotchy mask of panic. The princess has just realized the dragon is real. So, Miss Miller, I say, the quiet in my voice, more menacing than any shout. You don't just recall your exact words, you remember them perfectly. You used your father's name, his position, his badge, to try and command two sworn officers of the law to arrest a private citizen over a parking spot. Is that what you're now telling this court? She can't answer. Her mouth opens and closes like a fish gasping for air on a dock. The high and mighty princess is gone, replaced by a cornered animal. Her eyes dart to her lawyer, pleading for him to do something, anything. He stands again, his voice smooth as oil. Your Honor, I believe the officer's testimony is what I asked for. I snap, cutting him clean off. He answered the question. Now your client will answer mine. Miss Miller, I say, my voice dropping back to that icy calm. I will ask you one more time. Did you or did you not use your father's name and title in an attempt to influence those officers to arrest me? The silence stretches. It's a beautiful thing, silence, in a courtroom. It's where the lies die. Yes, she finally whispers, the word barely audible. It's a confession torn from her, against her will. Speak up. I command. I can't hear you. The court reporter can't hear you. Say it like you mean it, because you certainly meant it when you said it to those officers. Yes, she says, her voice cracking with a mixture of anger and humiliation. Yes, I did. Good. Honesty. It's a novelty for you, I see, but let's try to stick with it, I say, leaning back in my chair. Now we're getting somewhere. Let's be very clear about what we are doing here today. This isn't a civil dispute over a parking space. I wouldn't waste 10 seconds of this court's time on that. You are here because you are charged with filing a false police report and attempting to coerce a public servant. Do you know what those are? They aren't oopsies. They aren't bad days. They are crimes. They are serious charges that carry real consequences, consequences that don't care who your father is. I let that sink in. I watch her face as the reality of the situation finally begins to dawn on her. The bubble of privilege she's lived in her entire life is starting to pop. You see, Miss Miller, you live in a world where you think your father's title is a get-out-of-jail-free card, a magic password that makes the rules disappear for you. You thought you could wave it around and two uniformed police officers would just bow down and arrest a citizen because you were having a tantrum. Is that how you see law enforcement? As your personal valet service? As a tool to win your petty squabbles? She shakes her head, tears welling up in her eyes. No, it wasn't like that. Don't you dare cry in my courtroom. I warn her, your tears mean nothing here. They are a manipulation, and I don't buy them. Save it for your father, who you were so happy to involve when you thought it would benefit you. You wanted him involved? Fine, let's involve him. I look to my bailiff. Call the next witness. Chief of Police Robert Miller. A murmur goes through the gallery. This is what they came for. The drama? The police chief having to testify in a case against his own daughter, a case brought about by her spectacular arrogance, with me as the victim. You couldn't write this stuff. The doors at the back of the courtroom open, and in walks Bob Miller. I've known him for 25 years. He's a good cop, a straight arrow. He built his career on integrity and hard work, not on who his daddy was. He's wearing a civilian suit, but he can't hide the bearing of a man who has worn a uniform his entire adult life. He walks with a purpose, his shoulders back, but his face is a mask of profound, weary disappointment. He doesn't look at his daughter as he approaches the stand. He looks at me, and in his eyes, I see the shame. He knows. He knows exactly what his daughter is, and he knows this day was coming. He takes the oath, his voice steady and clear. He sits down, folds his hands in front of him, and waits. He's a professional. I turn my attention to him. Chief Miller, thank you for being here. You are the chief of police for this city, correct? I am, Your Honor. And the defendant, Tiffany Miller, is your daughter? She is. Not a flicker of emotion, just a fact. Chief, are you aware of a policy within your department regarding officers showing favoritism or being unduly influenced by the relatives of department members? Yes, Your Honor. It is strictly forbidden. It constitutes a gross misuse of authority and is grounds for immediate disciplinary action. So, if an officer were to arrest someone without cause simply because a family member of a superior officer demanded it, that would be a serious breach of protocol? It would be a betrayal of their oath, he says, his voice like granite. I nod slowly. Now, I want you to tell me about a phone call you received on the evening of October 12th. A call from your daughter. His jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. I was in a meeting. My daughter called my personal cell phone. She was hysterical. She said she was in an argument with a crazy old woman who had stolen her parking spot and was threatening her, and that the officers on scene were refusing to arrest her. She asked me to call them and order them to do their job. The courtroom is so quiet you could hear a pin drop. I look at Tiffany. Her face is ashen. The tears are flowing freely now, but they're not tears of manipulation. They are tears of pure, unadulterated panic. She is watching her father, a man whose entire life is built on a code of honor, methodically dismantle her world on a witness stand. And he's just getting started. Order them to do their job. I repeat, letting the phrase echo in the silent room. And what was your response to this? Request? Chief Miller? He looked straight at me, his eyes unflinching. I told her that officers of the law don't take orders from civilians, including her. I told her that if she was making a false complaint or trying to use my name to intimidate them, she would be in a world of trouble. I then asked her to put one of the officers on the phone. And did she? She refused. She said they weren't listening to her and that I needed to handle it. She was becoming more and more belligerent. So what did you do? I ended the call with my daughter, he says, his voice flat, devoid of all emotion, and I immediately called the dispatch supervisor. I asked them to patch me through to the senior officer on the scene, who I believe was Officer Petrie. I look to the young officer, who nods in confirmation. That's correct, sir. I turn back to the chief. And what was the nature of your conversation with Officer Petrie? This is the moment, the point of no return. Robert Miller takes a deep breath, the first sign of the personal cost of this public duty. I asked Officer Petrie for a calm, factual report of the situation. He informed me that he was responding to a verbal dispute over a parking space. He said that the other party, he gestured slightly toward me, was calm, and that my daughter was the one who was agitated and demanding an arrest. He then relayed to me what my daughter had said, which was, "What for the record, Chief?" He informed me that my daughter, Tiffany, had told him and his partner, and I quote, "My father is Chief of Police, Robert Miller. You'd better do what I say." He delivers the line like a judge pronouncing a sentence. The words are a condemnation, not just of his daughter's actions, but of the very idea that his name, his life's work, could be twisted into a weapon for such a petty, entitled tyrant. I watched Tiffany Miller collapse in on herself. She's not just crying now, she's sobbing, her shoulders shaking. The designer handbag is forgotten. The perfect hair is a mess. The princess is in the ashes of her own making. Her lawyer puts a hand on her shoulder, but it's a futile gesture. There's no comforting this. This is the complete and total implosion of a spoiled life. And after Officer Petrie confirmed this, I continue, my voice relentless. What were your instructions to him, Chief Miller? This is the nail in the coffin. Everyone in the room leans forward. What does a father do when his own child has so publicly and shamefully abused his honor? Robert Miller's gaze does not waver. It is fixed on me, a symbol of the law he has sworn to uphold. I instructed Officer Petrie to proceed based on the facts before him without any regard for my relationship to the defendant. I told him that if he had probable cause to believe that a crime had been committed, specifically the filing of a false report or attempting to coerce a public official, he was to make an arrest. A collective gasp ripples through the gallery. So let me be perfectly clear. I say, spelling it out so that not a single person can misunderstand. You, the chief of police, on hearing that your own daughter was using your name to try and have an innocent person arrested over a parking spot, gave the order to your officer to arrest her if he believed she had broken the law. That is correct, Your Honor, he says, his voice like iron. No one is above the law. No one. I look from the father to the daughter. He is the picture of integrity, a man willing to sacrifice his own heart for his principles. She is the picture of what happens when there are no principles, only wants. The contrast is staggering. Thank you, Chief. You may step down, I say quietly. He stands, gives a single, brief nod, and walks back to his seat in the gallery, never once looking at the weeping figure of his daughter at the defendant's table. He sits down, ramrod straight, and stares at the wall. The hardest thing he has ever done in his life is now over. Now it's my turn. I let the silence hang for another long moment. I want her to feel it. I want her to feel the weight of every bad decision, every moment of arrogance, every ounce of entitlement that led her to this exact spot. Finally, I look at her. Her face is a wreck, streaked with tears and mascara. Miss Miller, look at me. She slowly raises her head, her eyes red and swollen. Do you have anything to say for yourself? Not an excuse, not a justification, just anything? She shakes her head, a sob catching in her throat. I'm sorry, she chokes out. Sorry for what? I press. Are you sorry you did it? Or are you sorry you got caught? Are you sorry for trying to corrupt police officers? Or are you just sorry that your father, a man of honor, refused to play along with your disgusting little game? Which is it? She can't answer. She just weeps. I didn't think so, I say, my voice cold. The problem with people like you, Miss Miller, is that you float through life on a cloud of privilege, believing that the rules that govern everyone else, the rules of common decency, of respect, of the law simply don't apply to you. You thought your father's name was a shield. You thought it was a sword. You used it to threaten, to intimidate, to bully. You tried to turn the very system your father has dedicated his life to upholding into your personal weapon. You didn't just disrespect me. You didn't just disrespect those officers. You disrespected your father's badge. You disrespected his legacy. You disrespected every man and woman in his department who puts on a uniform every day and risks their lives to actually uphold the law, not twist it to their own selfish whims. I pause, letting my words sink in. You wanted to see someone arrested that day. You were so determined. Well, you got your wish. You just got the person wrong. I pick up my gavel. On the charge of filing a false police report, I find you guilty. on the charge of attempting to coerce a public servant. I find you guilty. The sound of the gavel striking the block is like a gunshot in the silent room. Crack! Your little tantrum in the parking lot is going to cost you. There will be a fine of $5,000. You will also serve 100 hours of community service. And I'm going to tell you exactly where you're going to serve it. You're going to be cleaning the toilets at the police precinct headquarters, the very building where your father works. Every day for your 100 hours, you're going to scrub floors and take out the trash, and you're going to see the real work that goes on in that building. Maybe, just maybe, a little bit of the humility and honor that exists within those walls will rub off on you. I doubt it, but we can always hope. And that's not all, I add, leaning forward one last time. You are also sentenced to 30 days in jail. Her head snaps up, a look of pure, unadulterated shock on her tear-stained face. Her lawyer leaps to his feet. Your Honor, 30 days for a first-time offender? This is justice. I cut him off, my voice booming through the courtroom. Sit down. Your client is not a first-time offender. She is a first-time convict. She has been offending people her entire life. She just never had to face the consequences before. Today, the consequences have arrived. I looked directly at Tiffany Miller, ignoring her sputtering attorney. You seem to think this is about a parking spot. Let me assure you, it is not. If this was just about your rudeness, I would have sent you on your way with a flea in your ear. But this was about something far more corrosive. This was about a deep-seated belief that you are better than everyone else, that your connections put you above the law. That is a poison, Miss Miller. It's a poison that rots a society from the inside out. And in my courtroom, we deal with poison. The reality of a jail cell is crashing down on her. The designer handbag, the brunch dates, the pampered life, all of it is about to be replaced by a metal cot and a shared toilet. This is a consequence she cannot comprehend. You tried to use the power of the state to punish a private citizen for a perceived slight. I continue, my voice methodical and sharp. You lied to police officers. You attempted to corrupt them by invoking your father's authority. In some countries, that's how the whole system works. It's called tyranny. Here, in this country, in this courtroom, we call it a crime. The 30 days are not for the parking spot. They are for the arrogance. They are for the abuse of power you don't even possess. They are a lesson in what happens when you believe the rules don't apply to you. In jail, Miss Miller, everyone wears the same uniform. There are no special privileges. Your last name will mean nothing. You will be just another inmate. Perhaps 30 days of being a number instead of a name will teach you the humility you so desperately lack. I motion to my bailiff. Bailiff, take the defendant into custody. The sound of the bailiff's chair scraping back is the final sound of her old life ending. The officer approaches the table. Tiffany looks at him, then at her father in the gallery, her face a mask of desperate appeal. But Chief Miller does not look back. He continues to stare at the far wall, his face etched in stone. He has made his choice. He chose the law. He chose his honor. His daughter is now in the hands of the system he serves. The bailiff gently but firmly takes her arm. Ma'am, please stand up. Put your hands behind your back. The click of the handcuffs locking around her wrists is sharp and final. It's a sound that cuts through all the lies and all the entitlement. It is the sound of pure, unadorned reality. She lets out a final, shuddering sob as the bailiff leads her away, a princess being led from her crumbling castle not by a prince, but by the consequences of her own actions. She disappears through the side door. The courtroom is still. I look over at Robert Miller. His eyes are closed now. A single tear traces a path down his weathered cheek. It is not a tear for his daughter's punishment, but for the daughter he lost long before she ever set foot in my courtroom. He lost her to a world of privilege and entitlement that he, in his effort to give her a better life, had inadvertently created. It is the quiet, devastating tragedy of a good man. I gather my files. Court is adjourned, I say, my voice softer now. I stand and walk back toward my chambers. The gallery begins to buzz, the vultures dissecting the carcass of the day's drama. They got their show. But I don't feel a sense of victory. I feel a profound sense of weariness. This wasn't about winning. It was about rebalancing the scales. It was about reminding one very lost young woman and everyone else in that room that justice is supposed to be blind. It doesn't care if you're rich or poor, connected or unknown. And it certainly doesn't care who your father is. As I close the door to my chambers, I think about the two young officers, Petrie and his partner. They did the right thing. They stood their ground against pressure and intimidation. They upheld their oath. And I think about their chief, a father who had to make an impossible choice and made the right one. There's still some good in the world. It just takes a whole lot of nonsense to find it.